Hello, you are listening to KRUI in Iowa City. It's 89.7 FM on your radio, krui.fm to stream online. Jake, where's the headphone control over here? Is it this one? Yes.
Maybe.
It's this one. Okay, thank you. For those of you listening, my name is Justin Comer. I am the host of I Hear I See Radio, the local music show on Sunday afternoons at 3. I am joined right now by Jake Jacobs, host of The Test of Lime on Friday nights. But more importantly, Jake and I are joined right now by some of the most trusted names in media, visionaries, best-selling authors, hosts of the very popular podcast Chapo Trap House. We've got Matt Christman.
Hey.
And Virgil Texas.
Good morning, Vietnam.
And also Chris Wade is joining us.
Hello, Radioland.
And Chris, you are the producer of Chapo Trap House and also a host of And Introducing.
That is correct. 2 pods.
Yes. You're very busy.
I am. I'm constantly looking at waveforms.
Yep. So before we get into the real meat, we need some Midwestern pleasantries to just lighten the mood. So how has Iowa been treating the three of you?
Oh, wonderfully. We've had a very good time. Everyone we've met has been very positive, and I don't get the normal Midwestern sensation that their smiles are hiding knives. Everyone seems to be genuinely earnest in their friendliness. And mostly, I'm of course, because we've been around a lot of Bernie people and the vibes there are very powerful. Mm-hmm. Anywhere else we've set foot feels like cursed earth.
Where else have you been setting foot?
Well, we went to a Joe Biden, I wouldn't call it a rally.
It was a town.
Maybe a wake? I don't know. In Newton. And that felt very much like, like there was some sort of dark spirit in the room.
Mm-hmm. And her name was Megan McArdle.
She was literally there.
Oh, no kidding.
Wow.
She's apparently doing journalism now for some reason when her entire beat is reading off what's in the Hemmecker Schlemmecker catalog. But now she's out there with her little reporter notepad, like writing down what they say for some reason.
Did you have a nice conversation with her, or?
No, of course not.
As anyone?
I would also say that perhaps the most Midwestern thing that we've been doing is eating at Perkins every day so far.
Every single day.
Not yet today.
Not yet today.
I think we might miss it. But
look, it's open 24 hours, so we might get it in late tonight.
Yeah,
What is Perkins?
There's always something fresh and new is the thing about it. It's a Midwestern elevated Denny's is what I would call it.
That's a good word for it.
And they specialize in making pies that you can get to go.
Yeah, there's one right off of the interstate.
Yeah. Good.
In Coralville, if you need a spot tonight.
But that's not an endorsement. That's not an official endorsement. That's just information.
Yes. Right. We were told that we can't curse or directly tell the audience to do anything. And that's going to be tough because that's literally how we got here. That's how we made our names.
To echo Matt, we're all basking in Iowa nice. And yeah, there isn't something lurking behind the Iowa nice, because everyone is just very literal here. Everyone is pleasant, and they wear, what's on the exterior is exactly what the same is on the interior. In that regard, it's the diametric opposite of London, where everyone you interact with is a monster.
Yeah, because the three of us did go to the UK right before the last UK election in December, and we could not have been a different experience. Obviously, the end result was catastrophic, but even the lead up felt very dark.
And now we're here 2 days for the Iowa caucus. Second time's a charm.
Yeah, who knows? But I'm just saying, in terms of the vibes and the general sense that I see going around, it's about night and day.
Yeah, and let's get into that. There's a important reason that you guys are here in Iowa this week. You are supporters of Bernie Sanders in his campaign for president, and this is a very open-ended question.
Well, I am now that John Delaney has officially dropped out.
Right,
I can finally move over to Bernie.
I mean, yeah, I know that your plan was to support Delaney first, and then Bernie was your second choice.
Yeah,
and things have turned out, as
sometimes you can't always get what you want,
as we predicted. Yeah,
and as we'll see going on, that block of voters is going to be very crucial in deciding the Iowa caucuses.
Absolutely.
I've been doing everything I can to court them. So this is a very open-ended question. Why do you personally support Bernie Sanders in this campaign? And you can go off wherever you want in this answer.
I think it comes down to the fact that his campaign is the only thing, the only movement, the only moment I've seen in my entire life, and that by definition means the life of any of the snot-nosed children listening to this.
And also, let's not forget the geriatrics who still use radios.
Right. Well, they don't remember it for a different reason. It's the first movement, the first moment of my life that I feel like has an opportunity to have a critical mass of people in this country realize that the ambient sense of despair and dissatisfaction that rules life in this moment is not inevitable. It's not immutable. And that the very fact that we can come together and mutually recognize that is what makes it changeable. And that the Bernie campaign is the vehicle for that to happen, if it will.
It's funny. Matt's answer to this question looks forward. Mine looks backward. I have been a supporter of Bernie being the 2020 nominee since November 2016.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, obviously. Don't act like I was like,
You're considering others.
Come on. Yeah. No.
And for me, the experience was in 2015 when this man appeared, from on a ray of light and was debating with Hillary Clinton, whom everyone presumed would be the nominee. And, everyone was just quietly thinking, oh, yes, things are just going to continue being terrible. Yes, great. This man appears who is he's an eccentric individual, right? And he just starts saying things that are so outside the boundaries of acceptable discourse, right? When he says, you know what, we don't need 50 brands of toothpaste in the supermarket. That's not worth the environmental degradation and the human suffering, that culminates in you having 50 brands of toothpaste. And that to say that is tantamount to heresy after decades of just strictly, policed, discursive boundaries. Where that is, extremely right wing. And as well, when he said that, I'm glad I'm not friends with Henry Kissinger. Oh, yeah. That guy is terrible.
Big moment. Yeah.
That was amazing to me because, for years leading up to that moment, I always thought that I would be totally isolated individual because my politics are just so outside the mainstream and that no one else could ever agree with me and that, I could probably never work in the media or something like that. Maybe I would eventually start, a mimeograph newsletter or something. And that's how I would eventually make a living. And to see that take hold in 2015 and to see that that was his 2016 campaign was unequivocally the beginning of all this, of the socialist moment and everything that entails. And I watched it. I've been a participant in it go from Bernie Sanders literally announcing his intention to run for president during his lunch break.
Yeah.
And then going back to his soup. With nobody there but like 6 journalists.
Yeah.
To a movement of millions of people. To see that through him as the vector, to see what I fundamentally believe now be the conventional wisdom among people in my generation and in your generation.
Yeah. And I mean, we're at the top of the polls. Like this can't be argued anymore. This is a dominant force in our politics now.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And the establishment, for lack of a better word, is not ready for it. Mm-hmm. That's why you have been treated to their collective mental breakdown. Like they're going through the 5 stages of coping right now. I think they're on bargaining right now.
Bloomberg?
How about Bloomberg? How
about Bloomberg?
Yeah.
Bloomberg is bargaining. Yes.
Definitely.
We saw the anger, and I don't know what the rest are.
I don't think the anger will ever go away. It'll just get fainter and fainter over time as you stop having to listen to any of them.
Because these are people who, deep down, because of their, either their wealth in society or just, the fact that they have had to, scrape and serve, and defend the conventional wisdom, to get a good job in the media or in politics or Democratic Party establishment or something like that. They genuinely cannot fathom that there would be millions of people who say, yes, I like socialism. I want socialism. I want no thank you to capitalism. I want the new thing. And it's just funny to see them, you can see the gears turn in their head as they realize, wait, but then we'll have a socialist nominee? What, wasn't he'll control the party? No.
And Chris, why are you personally supporting Bernie Sanders?
You can have, it's such a big question, and it really opens up so many vectors of discussion that get drilled down to, big things about your personal values and how you see the world. But honestly, my fiance Molly told me something today that I think is one of the most succinct definitions of why one supports Bernie Sanders, which is something that she read in Caroline Calloway's Instagram mentions.
Okay.
Which was
where the real wisdom is.
Which is just the phrase, I support Bernie because he doesn't leave anyone behind.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's like, we've been having this Democratic primary, and, Bernie has set the party line for the party, whether or not anybody would admit it.
Yeah.
And the thing is that when he says Medicare for all, it's for all. When he says college student debt relief, it is everyone.
Universal.
It is not, every other candidate came out of the gate saying, no, I support student debt relief. And then 4 months later was like, well, actually, the student debt relief for working mothers who earn under $40,000 a year, whose last names begin between K and N, living on an East Coast city. And it's like, everyone else out there has some way to take things away from you, and he is the only one who leaves no one behind. And it's just powerful. And the thing is, the more people expose that message, the more people come with him and come with us.
Because I think this process, the 2019 was Bernie just doing his thing to his core supporters, such as us. While the rest of the party and the media covering it decided that they're going to deal with him by ignoring him. Partially strategically because they don't want him to be the nominee, but honestly partially because I think they really believed, his time was past. Now they're all saying this. That was the big thing when they all started announcing, because Kamala Harris says she's for Medicare for all. Mayor Pete says he's for Medicare for all. And there were all these people saying, well, this means Bernie's thunder has been stolen. They took his idea. So it's all irrelevant. And what happened over the year is all these other people who were on paper saying the same thing as him fell away, because it was a process by which the people who, as they paid more attention, which took a long time, they're waiting to read the fine print, and they're waiting for the other shoe to drop, which happened with all of these people.
Yeah, one by one.
The last one at the end of the last year was Elizabeth Warren. And once that happens, there's, for this chunk of people who really want something like Bernie and maybe didn't pick Bernie because they thought he's too old or he's too divisive, which those are things that, I can see someone who's not fully invested in him thinking. But by the end of the year, the only person out there who had no fine print, who had some limitations may apply on there, was Bernie. He was the only one who was giving you a square, real deal. And that's, I think, when the tide turned, when people just decided there was no point in flirting with these other people, because at the end of the day, they were just giving you the same thing that they've been getting from every other Democratic politician in their life, which is big promise that is not delivered on.
And he's the only one who's straight with you. And the, older centrists would respond to that and say, but how is he going to pay for it? Like, that's this genius gotcha.
Yep.
And his answer is, who cares? We'll figure it out. Because, who cares?
Because for
just print money for
every other thing in the government, there's never any question about it.
Of course not.
It's not a real question.
We have an $800 billion discretionary defense budget?
Yeah.
Preposterous.
Yeah. And you just float another like several hundred trillion to the Pentagon over a lunch break.
We're way
December.
past anyone caring about how we're going to pay for it. I mean, for one, you actually need to have a substantial salary to think that, I'm going to be taxed. And another thing is, again, going back to people my age, people your age, if you have a substantial amount of, say, student loan debt, or maybe you have very high health premiums and, you're not making enough to cover these things, then you don't care about the federal debt. You don't care about any of that stuff. You just hear, okay, he's going to have a government plan to wipe out my debt. Okay, great. Okay, I see how it benefits me. Got my vote.
Especially since we've seen the trick played over and over again of Democrats fixating neurotically on paying for their programs, then and rigorously tightening budgets. Clinton left office with a budget surplus. Obama, in the midst of a the modern America's biggest economic crisis, starts talking almost immediately, as soon as essentially the fire is out, about cutting spending, and makes it a priority. And then, of course, Republicans get in, and no one talks about the deficit for the entire time they're in there. They spend money on all the defense gewgaws they want, the flying guillotine F-35 airplanes, all the tax cuts. And then the idea is, okay, now the Democrats are going to get in, and they're going to play the game of saying we can't afford it now, when we could afford it when they were doing it. And Bernie is the only person saying we're not going to let them dictate to us what we can do using rules they would never apply to themselves and don't apply to themselves.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned during that is that I really take issue with is the people thinking of Bernie as a divisive candidate, and really the idea of divisiveness in our politics at all, and how we should all come together. Yeah. To me, it's just a fundamental delusion.
Yes,
we are divided. These are issues that people actually have positions on.
Well, the thing is that Bernie is divisive in certain specific ways, in that he actively antagonizes a certain segment of the Democratic Party and the incredible, weird mutant freaks who have an emotional attachment to the Democratic Party, who are genuinely breathtaking specimens.
Hopefully some of them are listening.
And they are antagonized by him. But the beauty part about that is if he gets the nomination, they have nowhere to go. Sorry. Your fixation, your weird sexual relationship with the Democratic Party means he's the nominee. You got to do it. Sorry. You're not going to be a Republican. And he does antagonize intentionally the malefactors of great wealth, as the 1%, the billionaires, as he calls them, which that has the effect of unifying basically everyone else.
Yes.
And of course, you're not going to get the real committed Republican voters who are ideologically and materially committed to conservatism. But that is such a smaller percentage of the population than people assume it is. They only get to exercise this outsized influence, one, because they've been in charge long enough that they've been able to create counter majoritarian institutions like through gerrymandering and just exploiting the constitutional elements like the Senate, but mainly just because not enough people show up or care, because a lot of people who have no commitment to these things and certainly don't have any material interest in the Republican agenda have decided that politics doesn't matter. And Bernie's theory, which I think we're going to see play out in the next year I think it's going to shock, honestly, the world, is that if you bring in not even everybody, but just any kind of significant chunk of those people into the process,
the people that don't vote,
they're going to overwhelm them. The scary MAGA horde that all the liberals are terrified of. And think we need to get someone who can, who's going to play nice so that we can get enough of the conservative Republican or suburban Republicans who are maybe more polite than the baying chuds.
Yeah, we need Brett Stevens.
Exactly. There's not really that many of these people. And they can be neutralized. And you don't have to pander to people who are manifestly deeply invested in making sure that you don't go left.
Right. Yeah. And I think, we're going to see something that people bring up to me a lot is they're concerned with gerrymandering and Republican outsized control over state governments, local governments, etc. And what I'm seeing, or what I'm envisioning with a Bernie candidacy, is really the only way we can take care of that is by outnumbering them by such a large margin that the power is just taken from them. And Bernie's the only candidate I see who can really appeal to the people who aren't voting now.
And he's the only candidate with any kind of idea of what to do when he's in office to channel that energy.
Right.
Obama famously was able to put together a very large, diverse, powerful coalition delivered what is in the modern era kind of a landslide considering how polarized we are, and then immediately and intentionally set about dismantling it as soon as he took power. Right. He had no interest in channeling anything. He wanted to get things done at the table with the other stakeholders in Washington D.C., West Wing style. Right. And as a result, it was 8 years. It was as soon as they lost both houses or they lost the House in 2010, it was over. His entire moment was over, and it was 6 years of pointless gridlock. And then the astounding incompetence of the Garland nomination. And
wow,
it couldn't have gone any other way because he disarmed himself before he even started the fight. Because the fight starts after the election. You know, the getting there is a battle, but it's just the first. It's the first of a war. You know, you can't think, I think too many Americans, and I think they're conditioned that way by parties that want them to think of it this way. They want to think of politics as a consumer choice. You go in, you press the button, and you're done. And you watch TV, and then you see which team, you root for the team you like, and then you come in another 2 years, and that's your job. And if that's the model, it's gridlock until the seas claim us. Yep. The only thing that's going to change that is if we reconfigure our relationship to politics as the war is it's a multi year campaign. The first battle is to get the actual White House. And then the real war, the real campaign starts when you actually have power.
Right. And that actually brings me to another question I prepared for you. So now that we're talking about the potential future we're looking at, what happens after Bernie's elected? What effect do you think our success with this campaign would have on future elections all across the country? And what about outside of electoral politics?
Very simply, the purge begins.
Great. I'm all for it.
Yes. Well, I'm sure you're also compiling a list of enemies of people that once all the laws have been abolished and we are the ones in power, that we will purge.
Long live the new flesh.
As I've been instructed by your podcast.
But not instructed on here. Actually, one thing that he said recently, I forget where I heard him say this.
Just so you know, a purge is available.
Others will be purging in your neighborhood.
If you're interested.
No, one thing he said recently, I forget where I heard him say this, but some pundit asked Bernie, what do you imagine your presidency looking like? And he was like, well, I imagine I will spend a lot of time on Air Force One. And he was talking about how he imagines that he's going to be doing a lot of traveling to places, presumably agitating on behalf of his constituency. And I think one of the most powerful things to think about is imagine if I don't know, a Carrier air conditioner factory goes on strike in Indiana and the president of the United States is on the picket line with the workers yelling at their bosses with them.
Because that is really the hit, because yes, he's going to be agitating. And I think for a lot of these jaded DC guys, they think, oh, he's just going to be doing Trump rallies. Well, some of them like to say, well, that just sounds like Trump, of course is that is dental floss between your ears.
Their go-to. Yeah.
Well, they're both speaking to people. Well, being president.
They're the same.
Holy mackerel, dude. But the more sophisticated critique of that is, well, that's just spectacle anyway. That's just, people in a room, and that can be ignored. But not if those meetings are not just to talk to people, it's to organize people, and not just as individuals in a movement, but also as workers. And that's the real secret ingredient that I don't think Bernie talks about, honestly, because I don't think he wants people to really get spooked at what they're walking into here, which is that the U.S. labor movement is the only, in our history, has traditionally been the only effective countermeasure to capital accumulation and capital capture of government in this country. And one of the reasons things are so terrible now is because the last 40 years has seen the steady destruction of the American labor movement. It's at its lowest point since the 1920s. And Bernie has said publicly that his goal is to double union membership in the U.S. in his first term. And you can say, but we have never had a president, including Obama, of course. Exactly. Yeah. Obama, his labor movement was card check, which he talked about plenty on the campaign when he was in front of the AFL-CIO. Yeah. And then did they even submit it to the Senate?
I think it just evaporated.
Card check, or did they just let it in?
Obama's first term? No, it was never debated. It was never brought up.
It's just that's not a priority.
Also, what's funny is because they actually did pass card check during the last 2 years of the Bush administration.
Well, of course.
Bush vetoed it. And either vetoed it or was filibustered in the Senate. And then Democrats won a bigger majority filibuster-proof majority. And then a few Democratic senators, like Blanche Lincoln was one of them, who had originally voted for card check, said, actually, now that I think about it.
Now that it might happen.
Yeah, right.
Here's the thing, folks. I never actually wanted this to happen. And the thing about us Democrats is the thing we really don't want you to know now is that we don't want any of the things we tell you we do.
We just want to look like we do.
It's like that is, I think even people who like are alienated from the Democratic Party, I hear a lot of people talk about how they're incompetent and about how they're just dumb or they don't know what they're doing. Some of them are, and they do have DC brain in ways that makes, look at how the way they bungled the Trump election and the way that they're bungling this primary. They are very cosseted, and that leads them to a lot of groupthink that is genuinely counterproductive. But that's not the real issue. The real issue is that they do not want what they say they want, and they don't want what you want. And their job is to convince you enough that they're on your side for you to vote for them, and then to ignore them when they actually go through their careers of ignoring their promises. That's a great example. Another perfect example. There was a millionaire's tax on the table in New Jersey under Chris Christie, which passed. I believe, I think both houses there because the Democrats control the state legislature and the Senate. And now they have a governor, a Democratic governor, who campaigned on that wealth tax. Right. And once again, Democrats who had voted for it under Christie have voted against it now. Mm-hmm. And that is the secret. And that is why the idea of a Bernie presidency is terrifying, because it would expose them.
Yeah, it's all out on the table.
And what the Trump presidency really makes me feel good about is Trump had an opportunity. If he actually cared about governance and had an ideology, he could have realigned the Republican Party into like a blood and soil, hair and Volk democracy party.
Yeah, if he got Bannon around it.
If he'd listened to Steve Bannon and said, we're doing Medicare for all, we're doing higher taxes on rich people and the wall, that might have been an unstoppable force in American politics.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
But there was too much institutional inertia among the establishment Republicans who had to staff, because he had no guys.
Yeah.
He had to staff it with regular Republicans. And at the end of the day, he didn't care enough to fight it. So it's like they're yelling at him. Everybody else is yelling at him about Bannon. He's like, all right, fine. I don't want to have to deal with it anymore.
Too many shirts. Get out of here. What do you think?
And I remember thinking when he came in power, he's not going to be able to do that because the actual elected Republicans don't want it. But what I've now realized, having seen him in action now for these last 3 years, is that if he had gone to war with the Republican Party in the Senate and in the House and said, you're passing this stuff, they would have buckled. Mm-hmm. Because he could have put the beam on any of them.
Definitely.
And they would have been defeated in their next primary. Guaranteed.
Yeah. The scary thing is that, he's actually.
And he would have been able to say, he would have gotten these Republicans, diehard Republican districts, he would have gotten them kicked out because they didn't want to raise taxes on rich people. That would have gotten them kicked out because Trump said that.
Yeah, the scary thing is he actually has more power than he
has so much more power, but he can't wield it. And it's not going to be as easy with Bernie because it would not be as easy for Bernie to do that as it could have been for Trump. But it really shows that the power of the presidency, the emotional force the presidency has. And I feel like if Bernie wins a real dominating victory over Trump, like a realignment of the map type victory, which I honestly, I don't want to. I'm such a pessimist in my life that I kind of feel like I'm going insane, but I can't convince myself that I'm delusional. I honestly think he could do it. If he did that, if he banished Trump to the wilderness where he belongs, and
sent him to the cornfield,
he just explodes like Rumpelstiltskin.
Not our cornfield.
They're going to love him.
Yeah, definitely.
They're going to love him.
Yeah.
And
they're going to love him. None of them could do.
They're going to love him wildly more than any individual Democratic House rep or senator.
Oh yeah.
It's already happening. The thing that happened recently that made me just think this really could happen is Chuck Schumer, who is the avatar of the Wall Street Democrat.
Yeah.
Like he is there to do the bidding of all of the people who want nothing more than for Bernie Sanders to be defeated. But Schumer himself is he's the senator from New York, so he takes orders from the people who run the state, like most of these people do, because that's where they believe, that's how they have experienced the Democratic Party, as this clearinghouse for the special interests of the various, the different powers that are largely, it's a Venn diagram with the Republican interests, but it's its own thing. He came out against the NAFTA, the NAFTA 2.0 thing, which Pelosi had pushed through the House on the day that they impeached or announced articles of impeachment on Trump.
Great job.
And Elizabeth Warren is in favor of the NAFTA 2.0.
Yeah.
And you had Schumer here saying, there's not enough in here for climate change and workers' rights and stuff. And because he's in a state where, I mean, he could get primaried by AOC in a world where Sanders is president.
Yes.
He could lose that race.
Yeah, you guys are in New
100%.
York. You probably know better than I.
Yeah,
how that would go down.
like if he doesn't, like, that could be risky for her. But if he appears to be obstructing Bernie, if they get the Senate, which they could, they have a decent chance to get the Senate, especially if Bernie does well.
Yeah.
If he is seen as a obstacle, it's over. He will be primaried. He will lose, and that's enough. That's the power.
Yeah.
And as well, I mean, we shouldn't ignore just the immense amount of power that the president has by fiat.
Yes.
I mean, first off, as we've seen from the recent proceedings in Washington, so the president is above the law and is some sort of god emperor.
Yes, can do whatever he wants.
What's new? Yeah.
Any executive orders, like the NLRB. There's so many, the thing that I can't wait for is that there's so many tools at the disposal of the president that literally none of us know about, including me, because they've never been exercised, because no president has ever had the desire to use them.
My mantra recently has been, watching the Trump administration. You hear a lot of people squealing like, "Imagine if Obama did this." And my thought is, wait until Bernie does this.
Yeah. I just want to take a moment to shout out COGS, the graduate student union.
Oh, for sure.
If you're a graduate student and you're not paying your $20 a month, not cool. We're fighting to get rid of student fees.
Yeah.
They're the reason why you're not paying tuition and why you
Correct.
also have healthcare, which is incredible. We're very lucky here at the University of Iowa. Matt, I think you once talked about abolishing universities. And I thought that was really inspiring because I think universities do play a role in separating the most radical people from their communities. But I want to follow that up before I let you respond with, Bernie did win the Caucus last night.
Well, that is good. Never mind.
Downstairs.
University's
Bernie
good.
won by 5.
Well, see, there's the argument. People got mad at me when I said that, and then they pointed out, and it's true that like universities are really traditionally anyway, since the 60s, have been where leftism like thrives in this country. Like this is really the only place where people are together in a community and talking about these ideas in a way, because nobody works in a unionized workplace anymore, so they have no other opportunity to do that. And in a world where there's Bernie isn't president and we're not on a good trajectory, I think that, that needs to still exist. But honestly, I feel like the university system as it exists now is one of those things that we should hope to see phased out. That like these institutions that exist to like, this little gladiator academies for people to get some scrap of accreditation that can keep their heads above water, just enough to pay for the student loans that they took out to get the accreditation. And where they are inculcated in this, like, even if they're leftists, this neoliberal, this entrepreneurial idea that like you are selling yourself at all times. Yeah. Like even in political, like that's one of the things that plagues a lot of left political movements is that people have this instinctive need when they're in these groups to stand out, to make themselves, give a value add. And that's literally, they're just learning that from an educational system telling them that you're on your own. And the only hope of you having any kind of decent life is to, at every moment, be advancing your personal agenda. Yep. And that is directly antithetical to class politics or left organization. Right. And I think a Bernie presidency, a revitalized American labor movement, then all of a sudden, like leftism and socialism isn't this hothouse flower of the academy. It's something that regular people can get their head around and find ways to get involved with. Yeah. Like the Bernie organizer in chief thing is going to involve not only organizing workplaces, but creating community groups around all kinds of issues. And that's going to give regular people the ability to get involved in this stuff that really has been a privilege of people who've been able to get into college. And one of the reasons that regular people are alienated from leftist language and from socialism is because it is, I mean, honestly, in one of the most perverse turns in world history, become associated with the elite.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's completely backwards. It only occurs here in the ivory tower. Yeah. So this is another question that I prepared.
Before we ask this question, how are you guys doing on time? I want to make sure there's enough time for Chris's interview afterward with Lance.
Yes, we have to be at the theater by 6. So
Okay.
so I can do like 20 more minutes.
So,
after
how
this.
much long do you plan for our bit?
There's no plan. I had about 15, 18 more minutes.
Yeah, let's go to 5, and then I can
15's
go
good.
like 20 more minutes after that.
And by the way, just to be clear, the
thanks.
vaping policy in here is that you can vape.
Not in this room.
So do you see that fire?
Yeah, what about
It'll
it?
read it. Yeah, so they don't detect between hot and cold smoke.
It's not smoke, it's a vape.
Yeah, you can't tell the difference.
Don't do it while I'm in the
stupid
room,
then.
okay?
We can
I
finish up.
agree. No, so I'm over in the art school, and I mean, I can't tell you how many students are like, "Can I bring in a fog machine for my performance artwork?" And I have to be the mean grad student that's like, "No."
Wow, you're making them hide their light under a bushel.
Okay, so I wanted to ask this question, which I think is another kind of big open-ended one. How can we persuade our liberal, centrist, or even conservative friends and family to support a leftist agenda?
Okay, well, there's your first problem, that you have friends who are conservative.
Cut these people
liberal.
out of your life at all
Yeah,
costs.
well, that's not a command. That's not a command.
That was to me, directed at me.
Yeah, I was pointing at him when I
Not the
said it.
listeners.
It's on camera. I was pointing at him.
We have proof. Not a call to action
Yes.
for anyone listening.
Not a
would
call to
snitch
action,
on
but
us.
hey, that's available in your community. It's happening. It's an option to sever these toxic people out from your life. Freeze them out, never see them ever again.
If you're interested, you may cut people out of your life. Yeah, if that's something you want to do.
I would say, I mean, in terms of, I think the proof will be in the pudding once he's president. It's going to happen. And I just think it's going to just shift so much of what people expect, what people are used to, that it's going to logically take care of itself. But if you're talking about getting them to vote for Bernie,
Yeah, like right now. Yeah.
conservatives, that's easy. Who do you think Hillary Clinton hates more in the world?
Yeah.
She approves it over and over.
Hillary Clinton
She
hates
keeps making statements.
Hillary Clinton hates Bernie Sanders. I would argue 1 billion times more than she hates Donald Trump.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Oh yeah,
His victory will make her so mad that she honestly might spontaneously combust on national television. She might take hostages. So if you're a conservative who's part of your conservative identity is to hate the Clintons, and honestly, I understand completely. And you are, as most people are in this country, driven by spite in your politics, which is very, I think,
Guilty.
great. And
No,
clearly
same here.
a very important thing on the right. Just say, wouldn't they get so mad? So that's what I'd say to those people.
Okay, so let's say you have a relative who is a liberal. Just tell them that they screwed up printing the ballots. So if you have to vote for Bernie Sanders, and those votes go to Pete Buttigieg.
I would say to them. I mean, I guess this is up to you. You have to do sort of an assessment of the liberal you're dealing with. If this is a liberal you're dealing with who is on the Mayor Pete track, for whom liberalism is a career path, that I'm afraid that person is not. They can't be reached.
It's in their interest to stay
It is
that way
absolutely in their personal interest, a far more deeply. I mean, heck, that is how Bernie. That is like Bernie's entire. The basis of Bernie's campaign and socialist campaigning in general is interests. Is the interest of us.
Yeah,
it's like we have a shared interest to live in a livable society where we're not being exploited like dray horses by this ridiculous coterie of plutocrats. But if you're a grade grinding Mayor Pete homunculi, getting up there, getting in like all those things. I mean, maybe you could argue, maybe if you want to, to them, I guess you could say, look, Bernie's going to win anyway. You better get on the right horse. You want your resume to get read.
You want to win, right?
Exactly. You want to be a cog in the machine. You better get on the right side. But if they're a liberal, because a lot of liberals, I feel, I've just been conditioned by all the years of defeat and by a party that intentionally tries to define down their ambitions.
Yeah.
That like, this is what's possible. And I would just say to them, look at what they've thrown at Bernie Sanders over the past year and past 4 years. Look at what's happened. Look at the entire array of the Democratic Party against him. The former vice president of the United States, this creepy little munchkin from Indiana. They tried to get like a Lady Bernie, clone, but it wasn't perfect clone technology. They there was alcohol in the beaker or something. So it didn't quite work out. Like every effort you could find to go after him. And then every smear in the world that are all, if you're not invested in them, transparently, obviously false, because the thing that makes Bernie so invincible to these things is because people believe above all that he's honest. And just tell them, look at what he has built here. Don't you think that it could maybe the horizons of possibility that you have been burned, that has been bammed into your head for your entire life is maybe false. Maybe you're in Plato's cave. Yeah. Maybe you could turn around. Maybe you could see that there's a sky out there. That was what I would say to them.
And finally, if you have a relative who is an independent or moderate, just say, hey, pick a side, loser. Boring. Like you see everyone else doing politics and having all kinds of fun. You saw the hootin' yokels at the Trump rallies or the still with her lunatics on Twitter.
Yeah. It's a lot more fun to lean in either way.
So, rationally speaking, that means there's a 50-50 chance they'll land on your side. And that's pretty good. That's any political consultant will tell you that's a great conversion rate.
Yeah, totally.
I think also, like, as Matt was saying, the predominant emotion I think a lot of people who are more moderate Democrats feel is fear. And once
fear is the mind killer.
Fear is the mind killer. And once they start seeing Bernie Sanders win, that fear will evaporate.
See, that's the thing. A lot of these, this case is going to make itself.
Yes.
Because once Bernie starts winning, all the people who I think really do want what's best, but just don't think it's possible because they've been told that their whole lives, are going to say he won. He won that. He won that.
Win on that message.
He beat Joe Biden, who's the safe choice, who's gonna beat Trump because he's so easy, he's so likable, and he's so obviously acceptable to everybody. And he's in third place, Bernie's in first. My God, maybe what I thought was possible is not really the case.
Right.
So I think we have about 5 more minutes. The show at the Englert sold out, isn't it?
Yeah, we can't even not give you a call to action on that because the tickets are all gone. Sorry.
Well, I can tell you what.
Drain dry.
If you can find
So there's a show that's not available in your neighborhood.
If you can find me, my girlfriend is really trying to get out of coming with me.
I'm sure. And she will not be the only one.
Yeah.
In fact, that's a good move. Just wait in front of the angler and look at any girl who's rolling her eyes and just say, hey, you want me to buy the ticket? And I think you'll get at least one. You'll get a hit.
If you look cool, you're doing us both a favor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a couple more frivolous questions. We can do a quick answer
Sure.
here. I'm actually, coincidentally, I'm going to be in Los Angeles on February 25th. Can I get on the guest list for one of your shows?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Early one. The late show gets
early would be better.
Great. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Thanks. And now that you guys have been in Iowa at probably the 2 worst times of year, you were here for the state fair. You're here now. Would you say you hate our summer or our winter more?
Summer. By far. Okay. No question.
It's actually been kind of nice here.
No, I like this.
This week has actually been kind of mild.
This has been great.
I'm from Wisconsin.
You know it.
The snowy, desolate cornfields I find really lovely to drive through.
If it were 0 degrees, I would probably have the opposite answer.
Yeah, I would still prefer it if it was 0.
Maniac.
The summer made me want to just die.
Although I do have to say one of my best sense experiences of this entire last year was sweating through my clothes at the Iowa State Fair and then going to the 27-degree beer tent.
Folks, the 27-degree beer, we love it.
And getting a chilled below freezing temperature beer.
Degrees. It's below freezing.
When it touches your tongue, I could just feel my body temperature low.
So another thing I admire about Midwestern culture is you all know how to deal with extremely hot weather, extremely cold weather, and that's just getting drunk.
Same answer. Both questions.
It's true.
Yes.
Solved.
This is for Matt specifically. I've heard you reference Stephen King related media pretty frequently. I think even on your most recent episode.
Yeah,
you said something about following the beam.
All things follow the beam.
Yeah. So
all things serve the beam.
This might be a big question, but do you have a favorite Stephen King related piece of entertainment media? Books, movies, etc.
Ooh, you know what? I do. And it's a short story on Nightmare and Dreamscapes called Home Delivery.
Remind me.
It is about a woman. It's about a fisherman's wife on an island off of the Maine coast, whose husband dies in an accident on the ocean. And then but after she gets pregnant. So she's pregnant with a widow. And then a George Romero zombie apocalypse happens. It's very good.
I don't know if I've read that, but
spoiler alert, her husband comes back as a skeleton and she has to kill him.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure I would remember that. I like his story.
The short stories are the best.
That's the good stuff. And since I gave Matt one, I'll give
also The Jaunt. That's another really good one.
That one I don't know. This one is for Virgil specifically. I'll give you your own.
Watch it, see how it's done.
All right. In episode 2F09, when Itchy plays Scratchy's skeleton like a xylophone, he strikes the same rib twice in succession, yet he produces two clearly different tones. What are we to believe? That this is some sort of magic xylophone or something?
No, that's just how xylophones work.
Thank you. I appreciate the answer. Real quick, worst president of the United States of all time?
Andrew Johnson.
Agreed.
Johnson.
Definitely.
Not a contest. Anyone who says anything else is wrong. Shut up.
Are you wrong, Virgil?
He's going to be wrong right now, folks. Get ready for wrongness.
If we had more time, we were going to have you rank them all.
Ooh, I could do it too.
Matt and I have talked about doing a spin-off podcast where Matt just does a little bio and like the historical and political moment of each president in succession, and then we roast them.
We had the best and the worst ones in a row. It was pretty messed up.
I'll say, you know what? I got to be different. I'll say Buchanan.
Oh, that infuriates me because any Northern Democrat in that office before the Civil War would have done basically the same thing. Andrew Johnson was uniquely terrible for the moment that he became president.
Yeah.
And you got to blame Lincoln a little bit for putting him on the ticket, honestly.
Yeah,
I like being different.
Well, you guys have a whole lot of love here at University of Iowa and in Iowa City, and especially here at KRUI. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to transition into the next interview.
All right, cool.
I believe I'm sticking around to talk music and pods.
Stay tuned to talk to Chris Wade. Thank you guys so much for talking to me.
Thanks for having us.
That was a great conversation. Folks, if you're interested, there's a caucus on Monday. And
wait, hold on. We didn't talk about this.
There's a real good candidate that I'm a fan of named Bernie Sanders that you may be interested in. So
some people will be canvassing or caucusing.
And you can find all the information to caucus at berniesanders.com/Iowa.
I'm on the internet. You know how the internet works.
Thank you very much.